Hello, my name is Dipshita, and I am the Advanced Skills Development Lead for the BioHubNet program. And today I have with me Dr. Jefferson T., who is the founder and CEO of Agilis Health. Jefferson, why don't you tell us something about Agilis Health and what the company does?
Absolutely, Dipshita, and thank you for having me. Agilis Health is focused on doing two things. Number one, we do strategic consulting from drug development to product launches and life cycle management. And the second thing that we do is we specialize in knowledge transfer, right? So there's a lot of knowledge and data out there. So, and this is one of my passion, to really how to translate that knowledge to different stakeholders. And that includes the healthcare professionals, pharmaceutical companies, and in the case of our MSL workshop that is coming up, really transferring that knowledge and skill set to the students that are aspiring to join the pharmaceutical industry.
That's fantastic. We are very excited for your upcoming workshop, and I'm sure all of our trainees are as well. So I was just wondering, what can they expect from this two-day workshop? What kind of skills and what kind of competencies are they building during this workshop?
Absolutely, and I think that is a recurrent question. So the way the two-day workshop is set up is that initially I wanted to provide the students an overview of the pharmaceutical industry in general, and and the broader scope in terms of what that industry entails, and with a specific focus on medical affairs. And medical affairs is such a core function within the pharmaceutical industry that it's important to understand what that function entails. And essentially, medical affairs, to put it simply, it's the bridge between research and development and the knowledge from a healthcare professional perspective. And one key role within medical affairs that is at the core of that function is the MSL, or the medical science liaison. So the medical science liaison are really those professionals that are having that ability to bridge the data, the science, into impactful outcomes with the healthcare professionals. So within these 2 days, we're going to uncover, the broader scope, but we're going to mainly focusing on the role of the MSL and what it entails.
Fantastic. Just speaking broadly about where the pharma landscape is heading, and you have so much experience in the Canadian landscape, I was just wondering if you can speak a little bit to where the medical affairs field as a whole is heading towards. What are job prospects looking like in the future?
Absolutely. That's a critical question. From my perspective, three things that is very trendy at this point in the pharmaceutical industry. Number one is that the types of medicine that is coming into the market are becoming more and more specialized. And what it means is that the science is becoming more and more complex. So that scientific acumen is going to be very important to succeed into the future. Number two, especially in Canada, the access environment has become very limiting and becoming very stringent when it comes to access to medicine. So what it entails there is that from a business standpoint, it's important for anyone who wants to join the industry to not only understand the science, but also to understand the business, right, from an access standpoint. Because when you discover a medicine, you wanted to make it available to patients, right? So the business component is very important. And the third component that I would say that is very trendy, as you can probably imagine, is anything that is around innovation, AI, digital. So these three things combined makes it very critical for anyone who wants to join the industry to know more around these areas, and also to acquire skill sets and competencies in those areas, because they're going to be in very high demand.
Thank you. And one of the questions we always get from trainees is, what are employers looking for? So maybe you can speak a little bit to for the MSL role, you've definitely been on the other side of the hiring table. So what skills are employers looking for, and how can trainees distinguish themselves from the rest?
Absolutely. I would say from a skill set perspective, a few things. Number one, which is probably the most important one, is communication skills, right? It's so important whenever we interview candidates. We listen to them. We want them to present, especially at the final stage, really to assess their communication skills. So that's one thing that is very important. The second is really throughout that communication, we assess if people are able to connect and bridge, a concept, a science into the audience. So that knowledge transfer skills is very important. And the third thing I would say is that any candidate, although you may not have the experience in the industry, we want to know a little bit about how curious is that person. Has that person done some research, have done some reading in the space that they want to be in, whether it's around the role of the MSL, whether it's around the pharmaceutical industry and all the challenges and opportunities that the industry is facing. So that curiosity aspect is very important, and it kind of gives us an indication on how engaged that potential candidate might be if he or she is hired into that role.
Mm-hmm. And from also like the hiring perspective, when you see interviewees for new hires, what are the gaps that you typically see in those candidates, and what are some of those gaps that can be closed through workshops such as these?
Right. I would say a lot of the things that they learn from school is very science focused, right? Yeah. So some of the gaps that is very common in students is really how to leap forward in terms of, you may do research like, for a number of years in the academic level. It's really to ask the question, what does it mean? What is the impact? So, be able to bridge from a concept to something that is more real. So, what I typically, coach trainees through the workshop is really to look at, from an audience perspective. There's different profiles of healthcare professionals. So we're gonna look into that, and then from a communication perspective, how to bridge the communication style, the objectives, so that there's that connection with these different profiles of healthcare professionals. So within the role of the MSLs, one of their core role is really to interact, having the ability to interact with what we call the influencers in that space. We basically use the terminology key opinion leaders, or KOL. So these are the top-notch researchers in their space. So obviously having that ability to almost interact at that level requires some skill sets that is beyond the science in itself. It's skill sets around the art of questioning in order to extract insights from the key opinion leaders. So we're going to learn that in the workshop, the different stage to acquire that skill set, and we're going to have hands-on use cases where students will have the ability also to practice how to extract an insight. What is the difference between an insight versus an observation, right? Because from an MSL perspective, it's not a conversation for a conversation. It's a conversation to extract the why of why that KOL is thinking that way. So all I can say is that during those 2 days of workshop, we're going to do a lot of practice beyond the learning. So there will be some lectures, learning, but we're going to also have real use cases where students can really practice those skill sets.
That sounds like a fantastic opportunity. And I think one thing that maybe we can even speak to is the rarity of these kind of workshops, because I don't think there are any academic programs that really prepare candidates for these roles, very important roles in pharma. So maybe you can speak to the training landscape and where this workshop fits in.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right. The number it's offering in terms of training and learning is quite limited, because the focus is more for people who already have the job. Mm-hmm. So often, in recent years, what people were able to figure out, they figure out by themselves, mm-hmm. right? So in the case of Agilis Health, when I created that, one of my first questions is to understand, okay, what are the gaps out there, and can my experience in that field help accelerate, that knowledge acquisition for potential candidates who wants to join the industry, and also who wants to, be successful in their first role as an MSL. So it's really in that context of sharing and building up the next generation of talents that kind of pushed me to really create a program for, in this case, BioHubNet, which we're very excited about. And for me, it's sharing my knowledge and experience is just a passion at this point in my career.
Well, thank you, Dr. T, for all your perspectives, and we are very, very excited for the upcoming workshop. As you know, BioHubNet is a very learner-centric training program, so we hope that all of our trainees can be better prepared for their aspiring roles.